Coming up, where did that come from? The new plan to revamp KCI for pennies on the dollar, plus Nixon's last stand, a Republican push to abolish the death penalty in Missouri. It's been talked about for years, but is Kansas now so desperate for cash it's ready to consolidate its hundreds of school districts? The student at the center of the MU protests headlines Dr. King events in KC, and who is the greatest Kansas Cityan of all time?
Everyone, I'm Nick Haynes as we pour through the news of the week in this place we call home, dissecting those headlines on this edition of the program. Kansas City Star nationally syndicated columnist Mary Sanchez. He engages you in conversation about the news weekdays on 98.1 FM KMBZ Scott Parks. Across town, Steve Kraske keeps you up to date as the host of Up to Date on KCUR-FM. And Steve Vokrot prods, pokes, digs into what your local elected officials are up to on both sides of state line as a reporter for The Pitch. Now, could a new terminal be built at KCI for a third of the cost? As the city remains polarized over either spending nearly $1 billion on a new single terminal or even more money on modernizing one of the existing ones. A team of architects, on the urging of City Councilwoman Teresa Law, working with international consultants specializing in building airports, comes up with a third way. But is this new redesign at $335 million really comparable to the nearly $1 billion plan the city has already outlined, Steve Vokrot?
Well, I don't think this new plan has been studied enough, but that's not to say that the other plans have been studied extensively either. There's a lot the public doesn't know about the plans that the city and the consultants have come up with. There is a little bit more detail in this latest plan that emerged, such as line items about what each of the costs were going to be, whether it was going to cut it to really sufficiently modernize KCI for the cost, I think remains to be seen, but it is going to be a pretty significant part of the conversation for people who feel like the City Hall's ambitions for the airport are maybe a bit too grandiose. They're going to be able to have this in their left hand and say, maybe we can look and build this for a little less.
But there are some differences. I mean, there's been some critics saying, oh, well, there isn't enough gates in this compared to the other plan, or there isn't enough parking spaces.
Right, and those are all questions, as Steve points out, that need to be answered, Nick. What an interesting development here, though. We're sort of been operating under this premise that we have to spend $1 billion to build this new terminal out there, and suddenly there's a new way of looking at this whole thing. I think you got to commend Teresa Law and others for taking the initiative to trot this thing out. Again, got to underscore this idea. Lots of questions here need to be answered, but this is a very good time to have this conversation, Nick.
But the mayor has been out of town this week. He's been in Washington. We saw pictures of him at the White House even, with a podium right next to him, Scott. But don't you think the mayor's going to think, how dare they? We have a plan in place.
Right. And let me speak, if I may, because I think I've got the finger on the pulse here for Joe Sixpack in Kansas City, where the overwhelming thought is, not exclusively, but the overwhelming thought is the city council is going to ram a one-terminal airport down our throat whether we want it or not. And this new idea, which seems to have come out of nowhere almost has the best of both worlds. It still has the potential to keep the convenience that everybody likes about KCI, but also give the movers and shakers what they want, which is a new airport, if you will, and I use some air quotes there. My concern, though, is that the mayor may not like this because it doesn't include as much money. More money into the city is more money into the veins of the local economy, and this is going to be done at a third of the price. But to Steve's point, yes, this still needs to be fleshed out, but just my first impression is I like this idea and I like it a lot.
Well, Scott has the pulse, he says, of Joe Sixpack. How about Jill Wine Cooler, Mary? Do you have the pulse?
I like wine coolers.
Okay, all right.
You need a cork for. I agree with everything that's been said, and that it is exciting that Teresa Law put this out. What she did is she gathered up some engineering firms and some consulting firms and put them together and said, here, see what you can come up with, which is good. It's exciting. It does show that there's another way, but the devil's always in the details. And you've got to figure out all these other nuances of, will it really work? Does the money really make sense? Parking is always a huge issue. What I don't want to see happen is that this love that we have of our quaint little airport shove aside some real concerns. And I think, end of the day, all the task forces, the city council, everybody, and the mayor, will definitely not let that happen. But at least now there's a little bit more balance to that fear.
Well, and that's a very good point. You're right, Mary. The world is changing. Mayor James has made this point over and over again that folks, hey, we need a new terminal, we need new security, we got to get with the times. And that's a point that's worth considering here. The mayor's opinion about all this will matter and matter a lot. But also, the one group we haven't talked about yet here is the airlines themselves, who seem to be calling the shots at the airport as much as anybody else these days. I haven't heard what Southwest Airlines, how they feel about this new airport idea, and that will carry a lot of weight.
But rather than have this idea dismissed out of hand, they are going to look at this and have an official examination of this and report back on it in February.
Yeah, and I think they certainly have to. They have to consider it. It's worth noting kind of what's going on politically and why this is surfaced. Teresa Lohr was a councilwoman in the late '90s and early 2000s. She was around when the last round of renovations took place, and she's very skeptical of the push and all the momentum that's been building up for about the last year and a half, at least from a political perspective, towards galvanizing people to this idea that we need a new airport. She really wants to pull the brakes, and she may have a few allies in the city council. I think the new council, there are some skeptics of what the direction this airport discussion's been going. So this is going to counteract a lot of that momentum.
Well, there were hearings this week in Jefferson City on a Republican-led effort to abolish the death penalty in Missouri after competing with Texas for the most executions of any state. Missouri has only one execution scheduled for this year. Has the political tide turned on capital punishment, Steve?
Slowly and surely it is, Nick, across the country. I think a bigger question is, has it turned sufficiently enough in Jeff City to actually abolish the death penalty? I'm not sure we're quite at that point yet. But boy, the stats and the tide is definitely turning here. Lots of statistics here. Here's one. African Americans make up 12% of Missouri's population. They account for almost 40% of those executed during the modern era of the death penalty here. Those kinds of stats can no longer stand. People are standing up all over the country saying this is an unfair way to hand out justice in this country. Suddenly, it's an issue in Jeff City. But here's why it may not go very far, Nick. You have the Democratic frontrunner for governor, Chris Koster, is going to come out against it because that's the more still the stronger stand to take in a state like Missouri in the heartland. Governor Jay Nixon, who spent 4 terms as Attorney General, has authorized any number of the capital punishments as governor. He's not going to change his mind on this. It's too late in his career for him to do that. So you still have to get over those hurdles here. But it's a conversation that's happening in the state capitol.
For a Republican, it is still electoral suicide to say you're not in favor of the death penalty?
Yes, I think it is.
In Missouri.
Yeah, and in Kansas.
And in Kansas,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the Northeast, no, I don't think it's political. But speaking locally, yeah, I think it's political suicide to be a Republican and say you're opposed to the death penalty.
But this is a Republican who has put forward this bill in the state of Missouri to abolish the death penalty, Mary.
Well, and I think public opinion is shifting, and people are learning more about some of the statistics that Steve mentioned, and just the whole argument that it's a deterrence to crime, which it generally isn't. They're crimes of passion a lot of times it gets here. These people that have been just awful criminals throughout their whole lives. Some of this may get pushed more just through those other factors of how we do it, the issues with the pharmaceuticals, that you can't get them, and the state of Missouri's had their little storage unit or wherever they're getting them from, the compounded pharmacies, all that other sort of things that are playing in, that will probably keep pushing it off to that we'll have fewer and fewer before the state ever actually totally bans it.
Steve.
What's probably going to be more likely as it relates to Missouri and Kansas in the future of the death penalty is what the Supreme Court's going to do. And the Supreme Court's been very divided on the death penalty issue. And we're probably going to see the makeup of the Supreme Court change quite a bit over the next 8 years. And historically, what the Supreme Court has done is they tend to follow where public sentiment's going. We saw that with the Civil Rights era. And I think they're aware of states that don't see the use in using this type of punishment when you balance it with the risks of executing people who are innocent or people who have not had sufficient representation from attorneys. And so I think my prediction is sometime in the next few years we may see a Supreme Court decision that says
Although look at the Carr decision that they just had for Kansas. And again, that's a heinous crime. I mean, if you're ever, it's like I oppose the death penalty on, largely religious reasons, sanctity of life. But man, some of those cases, and that's one of them, you think, boy, if you ever were going to use it.
And that dealt more with legal procedural issues than
Absolutely. Well, that's what they heard. But still, the public hears those crimes and thinks that's what it's for.
The debate on this issue is one thing, but there's a whole national debate going on that President Obama has kicked off on criminal justice reform. This whole idea of putting nonviolent drug offenders in prison and re-examining exactly who are we incarcerating. States can no longer afford it. They can't afford to build the new prisons. And I think we're seeing sort of a dawning of a new day when it comes to sentencing and who belongs behind bars. We're still at the early stages of that, Nick. It's going to continue for a number of years.
By the way, Governor Nixon doesn't even give any time to the issue of the death penalty whatsoever, doesn't even mention it when he delivers his final State of the State address as governor this week.
Let's use the brief time that remains to each of us to work together and leave Missouri better than we found it. God willing, it will be. Thank you for your
Okay,
work,
so what
and
does
God bless
Governor
our
Jay
nation.
Nixon concentrate on? Well, pushing lawmakers to enact ethics reform, extending legal protections to the LGBT community in the workplace and housing in Missouri. And he calls for a hike in the gas tax to improve the state's deteriorating highways. So what's the prospect that the governor will get anywhere with those ideas? Let's start with ethics reform. After the intern scandal last year that toppled the Missouri House Speaker and local state Senator Paul LeVota, are chances pretty good that the culture in Jefferson City will change this year, Steve?
A little bit, Nick. I think we're going to see some incremental change. Things like you can't be a lawmaker one day and then become a high-paid lobbyist the next. That may not sound like much, but what a huge, scary proposition that is, that lawmakers can be swayed by offers like that. I think we're going to see that kind of thing. What we're probably not going to see is a cap on these unlimited campaign donations we have in Missouri. $1 million donations, $500,000 donations. I wrote a column today in the newspaper saying that needs to change, but you still get a sense that a lot of Republicans are reticent to go that far this year. So we're going to get half a loaf, Nick.
Right now, discrimination based on age, race, religion, or gender is against the law in Missouri. But those protections don't extend to lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender individuals. Governor Nixon singled that out in his speech. What are the prospects of that happening, Mary?
I would be surprised because you still have so many people that want to argue it on a religious basis, that being homosexual is a choice, which is a ridiculous argument. But I think that it's a voting year, and and they're going to be saying, no, we don't want to go that route, even though it's absolutely ridiculous. You can fire someone for being gay.
I'm with Mary. It may not happen this year, but I am astounded and actually pleased with the way public opinion has changed. It's almost been a tidal wave change regarding the way people view lesbians and gays and bisexuals. And I had a conversation with my daughter not too long ago, and I told her, I said, when you're older, you're going to look at my generation and the way that we treated homosexuals in the 80s and in the early 90s, the way I look at my parents' generation and the way they treated blacks. And I must say, I'm embarrassed for my generation for the way that we had treated homosexual people.
Do you think that will be an issue coming up in either Kansas or Missouri with all of the races that we have going on, Steve?
I don't think to any major degree, Nick. I don't think it's going to be a pivotal issue this year.
What about the gas tax? That was the other issue that Governor Nixon brought up. I mean, we know that we've been told all along that the roads are deteriorating. No one wants to put toll roads on the I-70 because nobody wants to fund it that way. But how about increasing a gas tax in an election year, Steve?
I was at a gathering of some Republican leaders in the House and Senate this morning, and they were saying that they don't see this gas tax issue gaining much traction, which, depending on how you look at it, is kicking the can down the road on a major infrastructure bill that the state of Missouri is going to have to deal with sooner rather than probably
But we heard
later.
the governor just say in the little excerpt we showed from his State of the State, let's do things to get along, make the state a better place. This was his very last stand, his last speech before he leaves office at the end of this year. How is he being viewed, Mary, as a governor?
I think it depends on who you ask. A lot of people through the Joplin and that, he came out the hero in some ways and stood up as a governor would. But then the Ferguson, definitely hurt him. That was horrible, and it was on very much a national stage, tipped off a lot of things that keep funneling through other cities now. He becomes the poster child of how not to handle that in a state.
Scott.
I think when the reviews are released on his 2 terms in office, I think they'll be very mixed. There have been times where I think he's looked very gubernatorial, if you will, but sadly for him, I think Ferguson's going to end up being his legacy because it's the one thing everybody seems to remember the most.
Steve.
I think I agree with all this. I think the governor had a choice early on. Does he want to be a consequential governor, a change agent, or is he going to sort of face the reality of the politics that he faced in Jefferson City, which was an overwhelmingly Republican legislature when he's a Democratic governor, Nick? And so I think he sort of looked at the cards that were dealt to him and said, I can't change the world here. I'm going to have to play it safe and be a solid but dependable governor.
Steve.
Nixon for a long time got credit for being able to work to a certain degree on both sides of the aisle, but as his time in office went on, he started to gather the ire of both Republicans and Democrats who viewed him as doing what's best for Jay Nixon, not what's best for either his party or for broader policies in general. And I think you saw the effects of that in the last 3 years where particularly the last 2 years, where he became less of a change agent, even if he wanted to be. He didn't necessarily have the entire respect of the people he needed to work with.
Well, let's move over to Kansas now. It's been talked about a lot over the years, but now that the state of Kansas is desperate to find savings anywhere it can, is school consolidation finally being seriously considered? The House Federal and State Affairs Committee has agreed to take up a bill sponsored by conservative Republican John Bradford from Lansing. The measure cuts the number of school districts from 286 to 132. The bill's author is careful, though, to describe his plan as a district reorganization, not a consolidation. Is the state's finances now so desperate that this could stand a chance of passage? Scott.
Yes, but the argument will be made that not a lot of money will end up being saved. But that's an argument that drives me crazy when it comes to government. It's not going to save that much money. Well, people are really good when they're in political office at spending other people's money. And this has been something, not to pat myself on the back, but for years I've been talking about this idea on the radio. If you really look at the number of school districts in the state of Kansas, and each school district has to have a superintendent, there's infrastructure that goes along with it, it is ridiculous. Let me give you just 2 examples. Leavenworth County, population 75,000. has 6 school districts. Fort Leavenworth has its own school district and doesn't even have a high school. There are only 2 high schools in that 3-city area, and that's Leavenworth High School and Lansing High School. I know that because I graduated from Lansing High School. Franklin County, Kansas, population 25,000, has 4 school districts. Cheyenne County, Kansas, population 2,000, has 2 school districts. It's ridiculous.
And it is a Lansing Republican, a conservative Republican, who's coming up with the bill. But he's not calling it consolidation, Steve.
Well,
by calling it redistricting, that makes it sound a little bit more pleasant, though, doesn't it?
And that's because, Nick, the word consolidation in rural Kansas is a naughty, naughty word. I mean, those small towns out there, in fairness to them, and Scott is so right, there are so many districts out there, but so many of those districts are sort of the centerpiece, the focal point, the nerve center of these small towns across Kansas. The opposition to this idea is going to be enormous, particularly in an election year. So it's not going to happen now. But just the fact this conversation is beginning, and my goodness, for all the reasons you cited, it is so overdue. The fact we're having the conversation is a signature moment in the state of Kansas.
All right, well, sticking with Kansas for a moment, are Kansans abandoning their grocery stores to shop in border states? A new report suggests they are. Kansas, you may not know, is one of the few states in the country that charges full sales tax on food, which means in some shopping centers you could be paying more than 10% on your gallon of milk and eggs, but pay 0 taxes on those same items if you skip over the state line into Nebraska or Colorado. Missouri's tax on groceries is next to nothing at 1.25%. According to a new report, Kansas is losing $345 million in food sales because of it. Researchers at Wichita State University found Johnson County was hit hardest with an estimated $93 million in lost food sales. But are enough people hopping the border in search of a saving to have Kansas officials say enough is enough, we need to change this, Steve?
No, and I think they're...
No, I just did the whole preparation. Okay.
Well, we're talking about Kansas leaders here, so I think they shed some skepticism on the report itself. Yeah. But I mean, just personally, I know some people who, if they're near the border, they will go to Missouri because of the sales tax rate and because they can get liquor at the grocery stores over there. Whether it's costing Johnson County $93 million, we'll see. That's a pretty big price tag. But whether it really triggers any change in Kansas.
You don't see it, Steve?
I don't see any change happening on this anytime soon, Nick. No.
Alrighty, the Kansas City, Missouri School District has a new leader. His name is Mark Bedell, an assistant superintendent in the mammoth 110,000 student Baltimore County School District in Maryland.
You know, this is what you're going to get. All right, I may not be the most polished person. I may not have the most experience in terms of being a superintendent, but what I have is a heart. I genuinely care, and I'm here to make a difference.
Okay, he's never been a superintendent before. Mary, is that raising any eyebrows this week?
It is with some people because it's an easy thing to latch on to, but he was in very large school districts as the assistant, and that says a lot. You're not the assistant person in Baltimore and within Houston and not have to also deal with those huge, massive structural, organizational things that are the superintendent's job. So it's not like he's some little novice who just came up out of, his third grade classroom where he'd been a great science teacher.
Is it asking a lot for one man to be able to turn this district around, Scott?
I think it's asking for the impossible, quite frankly. In my 30 years in this town, I've always watched the Kansas City, Missouri School District with a bit of astonishment, because it always seems, and not saying that any of these people have been perfect, but the blame always seems to go towards the superintendent and especially in the 90s towards the school board, which at the time, in fairness, was dysfunctional. However, there's a third rail here that nobody ever wants to talk about, and that's what do these kids go home to at night? Do they get sufficient parental support? There have been studies that suggest your kids' grades could increase 15% if all you do when they get home from school is ask them how their day went and what did they learn. I'm not saying that parents in the Kansas City, Missouri School District are bad parents, but I think some of these kids, a lot of these kids, go home to parents that really don't care or maybe don't have the ability to help them with their schoolwork.
But people have talked about that forever. And actually this new superintendent, if his contracts go through, which we assume that they will, has often talked about that too in terms of his mentoring programs that he plans to bring here and programs that do work with parents that are struggling in their parental skills.
Steve.
Any one superintendent can only make so much difference, Nick, but keep in mind this is a district that's a little bit down on itself right now, having lost Stephen Green, who was going to be the superintendent, who finally broke the streak and was going to be around for a long time. Everyone I've talked to who was in the room when Bedell spoke came away saying he had the room in the palm of his hand. People were just riveted by what he had to say and his ability to connect to parents and to kids. He was a Kansas City School District kid at one point in his life. That's important. Now, having said all this, the history suggests that these guys stick around for 2 or 3 years and they're gone, so I wouldn't make too much of this as we go forward.
Like the rest of the country, the Metro marking Martin Luther King Day this week. Jonathan Butler, the MU student at the center of Lost Falls campus protests, headlined the city's largest event at the Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Church.
Who was it that protested and demonstrated and mobilized until 2 top executives with 6-figure salaries, millionaires over the courses of their contracts, had to step down and say, yes, we acknowledge we have been insufficient in dealing with the issues of justice and racism and inequality. I've got an answer. The Butler did it.
Being on campus, I've seen the N-word spray painted on my door. I've experienced white students who have jumped me. We've got to be willing to not rest, y'all. Justice isn't convenient. We've got to be willing to not eat. Some of y'all struggling with that. But we've truly got to be willing to put our lives on the line for the cause at hand. If we don't do what's necessary now, no one else will do it. And it's not going to be us just who pays. It's going to be the next generation and generations to come.
Butler and his fellow MU protesters had a definite impact. Now the university may be paying a price. Fewer freshmen are applying to enroll at the Columbia campus, according to figures released by the university's Director of Enrollment. How about almost 1,000 students shy on the year before? Interestingly, the decline is entirely from out-of-state applicants. Is the bad publicity now catching up with MU, or is there more to it than that, Mary?
I think we don't know yet. Definitely it was bad publicity, and definitely it did shine an ugly light on the campus at many different levels of how things were handled, the crazy communications professor, all of that. It's too early yet, though. And it is the out-of-state, which are those higher, like 2-3 times higher tuition rates. There could be so many other factors. But definitely, MU got a black eye this year.
Who is the greatest Kansas Citian of all time? The Kansas City Star this week put out a 32-page special section detailing the 10 greatest Kansas Citians of all time. There are some familiar and not so familiar names on the list. Do you agree with their picks?
At number 1 on the Star's list, entrepreneur, philanthropist and late Royals owner Ewing Kauffman and his wife Muriel. President Harry Truman comes in at number 2, and Children's Mercy Hospital founder Catherine Berry Richardson takes up the number 3 slot. No list would be complete without the founder of one of our city's most iconic companies, Hallmark Cards. Joyce Hall is at number 4. Jazz legend Charlie Parker is at number 5, followed by the man who brought us the Country Club Plaza, realtor J.C. Nichols. The founder of the Kansas City Star, William Rockhill Nelson, is on the top 10 list too. He donated his estate and home to establish the Nelson Atkins Museum. Baseball icon Buck O'Neil is on the list, and so is apparel pioneer and one of the first self-made women millionaires in America, Nellie Dawn. And he has Bartle Hall named after him. Former Mayor H. Roe Bartle is credited with bringing the Chiefs to town.
Did anybody put a different name on that list, or did you agree completely with what the Star came up with?
Well, I didn't see Nick Haines' name on that list, which was disappointing.
You had to be dead, I think, to be included in this list, so that's a fortunate thank you.
And I checked, everyone has been dead at least a decade. Buck O'Neil is the latest one to go there, and that certainly stands out on this list. You wonder about, contemporary Kansas Cityans, Kay Barnes or Emmanuel Cleaver. Most of these people are really sort of the foundational, founders of Kansas City who made this list, and justifiably so.
Anybody else on that list?
I was just surprised that Pendergast didn't make it.
I know.
Well, that's interesting.
I would have put him on, too.
Even that might have been on the most notorious list.
Maybe so. Maybe.
Well, but his impact, though, is so long-lasting, and actually for some good things, all the reforms within the city are because of him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you look at long-term impact, he would definitely. The Star's done this before, though, and it was, I can't remember, it was either 100 names or 150. It was insane trying to make the decisions, and then we still took a lot of flack for why isn't so-and-so on it and this and that. So even if you expand the list, you're never going to cover it all.
And that's our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers from The Pitch, Steve Volkgrot, and he is 50% of Dana and Parks, weekdays 2 to 6 on KMBZ, Scott Parks. Keeping you up to date weekdays at 11 on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske and the Star's Mary Sanchez. I'm Nick Haines. Next week, crime is our focus. Join us at 7 for the documentary Our Divided City, followed by the Crime Caucus, a citizen-led summit on crime at 8. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.